Welcome everybody. Hello. For those who don't know me, I'm Janine Watson. I'm the CEO of Business South Bank, and thanks for joining us for this session on the 10 tips to boost the performance of your website and social platforms. And a bit of a virtual world at the moment, so we need this more than ever. This is actually our third virtual professional development session. The first one was on tools for working from home, and if you want to see that, that's available on YouTube. Our second one was on maintaining perspective, and we actually probably going to hold a second one on that topic, and we'll soon be holding one on video conference etiquette, so keep an eye out for that. There's about 75 people taking part in today's session, so welcome again from various organisations. So we encourage everybody to ask as many questions they like through the little Q&A dialogue box. So make sure you familiarise yourself where that is on your screen. Just a little update on BSB. We've created a special page on our website to make sure that we share information about each other. So if you'd like anything updated about your company, please feel free to email Vicky, Serena or myself. And just a reminder about our hashtag BSB Stay Connected. Thanks for those who are already starting to use that, and it's lovely to see everybody on that. I just want to do a little shout out to our producer Serena, because if anything goes wrong, Serena's going to step in and take over. Well, that's it from me. I'd now like to introduce our presenter today. It's Christy Fankhauser from Focus Marketing. She's the Director of Strategic Marketing. Christy has over 20 years experience in strategic marketing. Her expertise is in developing business growth, client loyalty and staff engagement. For those who aren't aware, Focus Marketing has been a long-time member of Business South Bank, and they're based in South Brisbane, where I should be right now. They're an independent marketing agency with a simple motto: provide no-nonsense marketing solutions. To take us through the no-nonsense approach, I hand over to the amazingly passionate and vibrant Christy. Thanks, Christy. Over to you.
Thanks, Janine. I'm not sure I like the over 20 years experience bit, but we all have to live with that. So welcome, everyone. I just want to start by saying, for someone who gets their energy from the people in the room, this could be quite interesting for me to see how I go. So if you find that I'm waning, please ask questions, because I just need to know that you actually are all out there. So I'm just going to start by saying a few things. There are a myriad of reasons why your website and social media may not be performing. But today we just want to share the top 10 reasons that we've seen recently. And you can probably imagine that, yes, recently we have been very busy with website, social media and all digital strategy. But at the moment, I just want to share the top 10 things that we're seeing and some tips to sort of not only just recognise and diagnose those issues, but also how to improve them. At any time you want to ask a question about your particular situation, please do so. And if we can't get to it during the course of this session, then we'll hopefully try to do something about that afterwards. Websites and social media are neither things that you can do a sort of set and forget with. They actually really need constant love and attention and maintenance, as they can break and date very quickly. So like your car, you need to keep servicing them to keep them up to date. At the outset here, I also want to raise that in terms of websites, there are many different platforms on which your website could be built. We're not going to go into detail about all of them. But whether your site is a custom site, a custom build, a templated site through WordPress, Squarespace, Moonpig, or even a GoDaddy, or a combination of all of the above, or even a Shopify site, the tips I'm hoping to share will hopefully be practical enough that can help anyone out. And if they don't, and you really do need some more information, then contact me either via our website or on LinkedIn. So without further ado, we'll move to the first tip, which is about, if I can get there, purpose and performance. So before you can diagnose why your platforms aren't performing, you really need to have a clear understanding of their purpose. So what I mean by this is, are your channels actually fit for purpose? We've had a couple of clients come to us saying that their website isn't working as they're getting very few leads from it. So they want to build a whole new site. When we look into their site, there's actually nothing wrong with the site, except that it actually didn't have any lead generation tools on it. So they didn't need a new site, just some tweaks to add some lead generation to it. And we can go into a bit of detail about lead generation if anyone wants to know any more about that. But it's similarly, if you had a website that was originally built to tell people that you exist and where to find your business and a bit about your brand, which we kind of call brochureware, and now no one can actually come to your shop, so you want to sell your products online, then your existing website that you may have had may not perform for you, and you just needed some different tools to actually help turn your, I guess, brochureware website into an actual shop front. The same goes for your social media accounts. You need to know what their purpose is before you diagnose underperformance. So you also need to have a clear understanding of what good performance looks like. So particularly in social media, vanity metrics, and what I mean by that, likes and shares, they may be fine for you as a sign of performance. And that may be just what you want, more likes, more shares. But if you're looking at it from a holistic business perspective, your social media performance metrics should be about increasing brand awareness, or better still, increasing revenue. So you can have as many likes and shares as you like, but if no one is buying from you, then you're not performing as well as you need to be. Conversely, if you just want to be seen and be known, then vanity metrics will work for you. So understand all of those metrics and things like that before you say it doesn't work, and ensure you actually know how to measure them. So things like looking at all the different types of tools that they're out there. It'd be really great now if everyone could sort of take a little moment to think about your website and your social media channels and work out what the true purpose of them are right now. Write those down so that you actually have that. And if they're not fulfilling that purpose, or you actually want them to fulfill a different purpose, write that down as well and see how you can compare those two. So the main tip on this one is be sure of the purpose of your digital channels and have the right performance metrics in place before you determine an underperformance diagnosis. At a minimum, use Google Analytics for your website and the native social media analytics tools to monitor and diagnose the performance of your channels. And then you can optimize timings of your posts and all those pieces. And no questions yet, so we're keeping on going. Okay, tip number 2, the user experience. So making sure those visiting your website really should have a positive experience with your website and have no difficulty navigating around the site. So there is research that said it only takes 0.05 of a second for your website to make an impression on a potential client or customer. So that's 0.05 of a second, so it's not long. So when visitors come to an outdated site or one that's difficult to navigate, most of them will click away as quickly as possible. And guess what? They head straight to your competitors' pages instead. So a lot of modern design is essential to standing out in the crowd for web and also for converting those visitors into actual clients. You need to ensure your website structure is intuitive and user-friendly. If the purpose of your website is to get people to purchase products, then get them to that point quickly. Don't hide your products under layers and layers and layers of navigation. So death by drop-down menu should be avoided. The other thing with some of the layers of navigation is they don't work very well on mobile as well. So you just need to be really conscious of what you need to do, what action you want people to take, and get them there as quickly as possible. Also, ensure that your content is really easily accessible. We've seen many people using their sort of news and insights pages on their sites, like newsletter tools. So you have a snippet on the front page with a picture and a click here to read more, and then it takes you to a PDF, because when I asked a client why, is because it's nicely formatted. And so if someone wants to download and print it, it looks pretty. What you've done is you've made me, the user, work really hard to get content. So if once I get there, that content better be worth it, because I've already moved on if I have to really work hard for it, and it's just something that you're giving for free. So have a spring clean. The other thing that will also impact your user experience is a lot of old images in your media library. So spring clean your site, delete any unused images from your media library. Also delete any, if you're using if you've got a WordPress site, delete any inactive plugins. Also make sure you've reduced your images to increase the load speed of your website. So for example, blog images should be no more than 600 to 400 pixels and landscaped. That's just one example there. A few images that are over 1 megabyte can slow down a website's load by precious seconds. And as we said, if you've got 0.05 seconds for your website to make an impression, so every second counts there. Also look at another thing to look out for is broken links. They can also lessen the user experience and also date your website. So you fix all broken links, and if you're on a WordPress site, which is easy, there's an actual broken link plugin that you can actually install to make it quicker and easier to fix those in the future. A broken link, if you don't know, could be an old email address that doesn't go anywhere, or internal links to other content on different pages that no longer exists, or an external link to another website, or it could be a news feed or something like that that also no longer exists. So the main tip here is visitors tend to scan websites. So ensure you're grabbing their attention with clear headings, subheadings, images, and videos. Don't bombard them with text. Limit it to 250 words maximum per message or section. Less is always best. Simplify your menus and check your links. Your visitors should smoothly find their way towards the action you want them to take. The other thing you can do here is ask someone you trust, a peer, someone, a competitor, anyone that you trust, to actually have a look at your website and get some open and honest feedback. You need to make sure you're open to the feedback and make sure it's someone who doesn't tell you what they know you want to hear. So that independent friend, for example, just to have a bit of a go through your website and see how long it takes them to get them to where you need them to get to. I've got a question here about best time to post and things like that on your social media. So what we're going to do is we'll get to there, but little things like that, I can't tell you you should be posting, if I told you you should post on Facebook at 3 p.m. on Tuesdays, I'd be giving you a lie. It depends on your audience when you post and what time of day. The good thing about Facebook, Instagram, a lot of those tools, they do have their own analytics tools that can actually test it. So test it, change dates, change times, change things by a half an hour or things like that. And that actually will help you out there. So, oh, hello, something's gone wrong. I think we're back. Hopefully we are, but anyway. So I'll park that question from Anonymous there, but yeah, you need to test. There is no science to a lot of the things we're talking about. You do need to test, and everyone's audiences will be different in terms of time of posting to get more views. Okay, next point we're moving on to is branding. This does seem obvious, but you need to make sure your brand can be recognised throughout your website and social channels. If that's not happening, then you need to have a look at that. Is your brand strong and consistent across all your social channels? For example, does your LinkedIn and Facebook look and sound completely different, or do you instantly know what company it is and what you're about? Updating colours and images on most websites is relatively easy to do yourself, unless, of course, if you have a custom build site and you don't know how to code, it might be difficult, but it's pretty easy for a developer to fix those things. If you have updated your logo, colour palette, your tone of voice, or anything along those lines, also make sure it flows through to your social channels as well. It's now quite common also for your digital palette to be very different from your printed palette. Some colours are just not meant for screens and just don't resolve well for screens. So be conscious of that and alter your brand guidelines accordingly. As we've spoken about before, images can be a great way to improve your website, portray your brand, and keep visitors engaged on your page. However, if incorrectly used, they can either slow down your website and they can make your website appear disingenuous or bring the wrong kind of target market to your site. So every image you use should be relevant, meaningful, high quality, and authentic, even your stock images. So brand your social channels like you would brand your website and ensure the tone works for all channels. Make sure someone in your brand acts as the brand custodian, and consistency is key. So when we're talking brand, we talk in a holistic sense of brand. So not just logo, images and color, which I've talked about, but really tone of voice. Each of your social media channels should have a tone of voice that is consistent with your overall brand, but might change slightly because of the audiences you're attracting on the different channels. So just make sure you're sort of looking at all the different things you've got there. I've also got a question about the amount of posts on social media, so we'll go, that's coming up at the end, so we'll get to that, but thanks for the question there. I'm going to move on quickly to SEO because this is a really interesting topic and a very detailed topic. So all we're going to do here is talk briefly about SEO. Is your website ranking well on Google? Of course, you can also do paid advertising with Google Ads to increase your ranking. But today we're going to focus on your organic rankings and SEO that you can do yourself. So it's a question for everyone. Do you know if you have an actual SEO function in the back end of your website? If you're already paying someone to do your SEO for you, then that's great and it's working. You can probably tune out for this bit, but if you're not ranking where you want to rank, then there's a few things that you can do yourself. Otherwise, you'll need to get an SEO expert in to help you out there. But also, don't let your Google listing lure you into a false comfort. While your site might rank on the first page of Google, if you're unable to keep visitors on your page and therefore get them to contact you or your business, then it's all for nothing. So your SEO needs to marry with your user experience. So that's when you start getting into your Google Analytics and look at bounce rates and things like that. We're not going to go into too much about the analytics of everything today because we only got half an hour, and I want this to be as practical as possible, but you do need to sort of look at these things together. So with SEO that you can do yourself, I've got about 6 things that are really simple for you to do. Keyword research. So always start with your keyword research. Don't assume that you know what your customers want. You're likely to understand your industry jargon, but your prospects might use different terms or refer to your services or goods or products in a different way. So keyword research provides an understanding of the words and phrases that consumers use to find your products. It also helps to gauge demand for them. So when you're doing keyword research, if no one is looking for something, don't use it as a keyword in your website because there is no audience for you. So you make sure you're using words that you know people are looking for your product by searching. Keyword research also identifies the keyword themes that real searchers are using in their search queries. Understand your competition as well. Search for the most important products and services that you offer and note the prominent websites in the search results. Those that share your business model as well as the ones that are dissimilar to yours but compete on the same searches. Look at what they're doing well. What content themes do they have that you're lacking? Do they structure their site differently to target more valuable keywords? Do they have interesting features to better engage their prospects? All of these things are things you need to start looking for your SEO. Update your site with an understanding of what your customers want and the keywords that they use to find your products and services. Identify the pages on your site that you need to address those queries. I'm not going to go into the back end of everyone's sites to understand where their SEO systems sit, but you'll need to get an understanding of that so you can update those sites as well. Optimize your site. So this is where you'll go through and optimize every page for search results. If you don't know what you're doing, engage someone who does. This is an area that you can't kind of dabble in. You need to get it right. If you do this yourself and you know what you're doing, then don't be lazy. Add your meta descriptions and things to both your content and images to ensure they can be found. SEO is not a set and forget either. It needs to be constant. You can't just tick it off and say, I've done that. You need to continually upgrade. Producing regular content also helps you SEO. You don't have to turn your business into a publishing company or post content every day. It's unrealistic, particularly for many e-commerce sites, to do that. But you should publish your own content regularly. Consistency is key. So if it's weekly, that's fine. Just make sure you do it every week, not post once, then don't post for a month and a half, then post 10 times in a week. Just try and be consistent. Content also does not need to be text. For example, an architectural firm can publish photographs of its projects with short textual descriptions that can also have meta descriptions and be found. Publishing content that is tailored to the consumption habits of your target audience is the main goal here. So make sure you're researching what your clients are doing and publishing content that aligns to those. And the final piece on SEO is understanding your analytics. You can't optimize what you don't measure. Importance of analytics in all your digital marketing, whether website, social, anything, is akin to financial reports in your business. They're essential to track performance. So from a website perspective, have a basic understanding of Google Analytics or whatever web analytics business is. In Google Analytics, study the reports under acquisition, all traffic, and then channels, and then you can actually click on organic search and you'll be able to analyze the performance of your SEO program that you've developed. So big topic. And things like, now I've got someone asking, how do I know which keywords my visitors type to find my website? You don't need to know what your exact visitors type to find your website. You just need to type in search terms, and if your website doesn't appear on the first page, you know that's not how they got there. So you need to start doing some research on that. If you actually Google keyword research, you'll get a heap of articles on how to do it. There's tools on how to do it and things like that. But what you're looking for is not Joe Blogs typed in, I want a new website and found my website. You want to actually start looking at terms where your website's going to come up. So hopefully that works. And we've also got thank yous. SEO does stand for search engine optimization for anyone who, I'm sorry if I went over that quickly. There's also SEM, which is search engine marketing. That's a whole other topic. We won't go into that one just today. So moving on. We're halfway there, people. Number 5 is credibility. Now, this is a really important one as well. We've seen a lot of websites lately that are beautiful, but in our views lack credibility. So under credibility, you need to make sure your content's professional, believable, and trustworthy compared to your competitors. Your website is asking for your visitors' time and most often money, so you need to show you're credible with what information you're providing and taking from them. Spelling and grammar, big issues. We see this all the time. They'll discredit your website really quickly and you should be reviewed, so check it. If you're building a new website or going through a review, make sure you keep your content, and it might be old-fashioned, but put all your content in documents. Keep it stored somewhere in a hard copy version. Go through it so you can check the grammar. Then once it's placed into context, you've actually got a backup of it, but you can also review all your spelling, grammar, and things like that. Sometimes on the site, it's really hard to do that. So make sure you're checking that all the time. But I cannot tell you how many sites we've gone through and spelling and grammar, or it looks like someone's cut and pasted things onto sites and they left half the sentence off. It wasn't checked and it's live. So just really check those things. The other thing is the website should provide each visitor to the page a clear understanding of what you actually do and for whom. Again, we've seen a lot of beautifully designed websites that have told the customer absolutely nothing about what your business actually does, what problems you can solve, and the benefits of contacting them over your competitors. So clarity is also a key to credibility. There's a lot of sites, I think, at the moment, and I don't know where this came from, but in our experience, if you don't actually have anything in your About Us section about who's behind the business, a lot of people will be very uncomfortable about purchasing from you. So unless you're a major brand, people want to know that there is an actual human being behind the business, and that it actually is a credible business. So it doesn't matter that if you're a sole practitioner, if you're it's just you and you're a consultant or everything. People want to understand who it is that's behind a business, and they want to understand it's a human there. So that's one of the things that we say all the time. Credibility is key. The other thing is website copy is really different to writing for other mediums. So it should be short, it should be clear, it should be impactful, and should portray your branding through tone. And of course, as we mentioned before, should be SEO friendly. And you should showcase sort of your blog content, article content, news content, whatever you're going to call it, to prove that you actually know what you're talking about, rather than just saying you can do things. Ensuring your ABNs, addresses, license number, if you've got to have a particular license, if you're an electrician or something like that, memberships and qualifications, make sure they're clearly visible on your website. And if you have an online store or a membership login, ensure that you have a current SSL certificate. So this is the little padlock. So when you go to your browser, there's be a little padlock that shows on your search browser. Google is really not a fan of unsecured sites. So this is also when you see the address of your site. If it's HTTPS, it's secured. If it's HTTP, it's unsecured, and you'll need to get yourself an updated SSL certificate to show that your site is credible and secure. This is a Google thing. Doesn't mean to say that your website isn't secure if you don't have this, but Google won't rank you and doesn't like you very much if you don't have that security system. The other thing is also ensure and update regularly your privacy policies and your terms of use. Make sure they're visible and regularly updated to reflect current legal position. If you're getting any form of content from other people, so if you've got gated content, which is content that you might have a form that you have to fill in to get it, you really need to make sure you have a proper privacy policy there, and you explain what you do with that information. It's not just good use for your website, it's actually the law. So just a bit of background. In my previous life, I was a lawyer, so there's going to be a few legal bits coming in here, just because I get a bit antsy when I see so many sites asking people to fill in forms and give their contact details, or even subscribing to newsletters, and there's no privacy policy there. So make sure you get those up to date, and get one. If you haven't got one, get one written. That would be great. The next tip we're going to move on to is conversion. So this is where you turn those visitors into customers, clients, whatever term you want to use. So this is really important to make sure that your website is targeting the right customers or clients, and are they following through to purchase? Now, I use the term purchase loosely, so it could be engagement, it could be whatever it is that you need the person to do to start spending money with you. That's our main goal. How do we get them from just looking at your lovely website, downloading all your content, looking at all that, to actually engaging you? So here we go with conversion, and this is really a crash course in it. There's so much information available on this, but I'm just going to give a little bit of a crash course on what we're seeing at the moment. Really make sure that your website has a purpose. So whether you want visitors to sign up to a newsletter, buy something, request a quote, or just to simply contact you, there has to be a clear and prominent call to action. So if yours is non-existent or lost in a busy design, then you won't be converting your visitors into clients. Low conversion rates can also simply be the result of the call to action getting lost on the page. You also need to ensure that your call to action buttons or whatever that function is stands out and makes it really easy for the visitors to take the desired action. Your call to action button is what you want your potential client or customer to do. Defining this is key and making sure that you then take the customer on the journey through the action. So through your website design and credibility, you'll be taking the person on a journey to get them to do what you want them to do. And if they don't, then that's when you need to start looking at that and tweaking things. Same applies here for social media. Social media is a really interesting one. You need to have a purpose with it. Tell people what you want them to do with your posts. A lot of content we're seeing, particularly on LinkedIn at the moment, if you're using, a lot of people are using social media to push their website content out to people, which is a great use of it, not a problem at all. But make sure you're clear in your post about what the article is about or what the content is about, and that you're really clear with your read more and why they should be reading more and how they click through. So there's all sorts of tips and things like that to do. On LinkedIn, it's always good to make sure that whatever image you're posting with your content is the click-through button. So it's hyperlinked. There's not another link hidden somewhere that you hyperlink through to that. There's tips and tricks on actually LinkedIn that show you how to do that. But it's a real trick with that in social there, that you make sure you know what you're doing with that. So the main tip for conversion is you really want to make it easy for visitors to act and convert to customers quickly. The other thing to remember here is if the action is to fill in a contact form and someone actually does it, ensure that your team action it promptly. So if you've got a request for quote button or something like that, make sure that you know where it's going. And also that you know who is responsible for actually actioning that. Another thing we've seen at the moment is you need to test all those things. So if you've got call to action buttons that are fill-in forms and things like that, test them often, because what we've found a lot is a lot of those things are broken, or they're going to an old email address that no one's checking, or they're just getting stuck somewhere in the back end of your website and not coming through. So you could have all these people contacting you somewhere and you're just not aware of it. So make sure you actually test those things and check them when you can and as you can. The other thing with some of your conversion tools, so particularly with, you need to make sure how they work in a mobile setting, and I'll get to that in the end, but some pop-ups and some forms and things are really hard to navigate on a mobile, so you need to just tweak a lot of those things to make sure that it's mobile responsive as well. So a few things to look at with conversion. Conversion's one of those things. There's a lot of tools you can get from conversion. There's a lot of tools you can use from a sales perspective to make that conversion process easier, but I just wanted to give a bit of an overview of what we're seeing from that conversion. Most times the lack of conversion is purely due to things that are broken rather than the site not being ready for conversion. It's just links broken and things like that. Now we're going to move on to the all famous mobile responsiveness. You need to ensure, it's really important to ensure that your website performs really well across all platforms. You need to make sure the layout of your site adjusts to fit the size of any screen your site's displayed on. Most people go, oh, that's a given now, everything's mobile responsive. But the biggest issue we're seeing is that it's not just a click a button and it actually converts to being mobile responsive. A mobile-friendly site is really important for two reasons. First, according to Google, more than half of the searches that come through Google come from smartphones. So make sure the experience of those users is seamless and really engaging. Secondly, Google now ranks all organic search results, so for desktop and mobile devices. So they also base it on a mobile's experience, including page speed. So everything you're doing is going to be ranked based on not only the desktop, but also your mobile. So you need to test it. As I said before, unfortunately, mobile responsiveness is not as easy as a click of a button. Your desktop site should not always be replicated exactly the same on your mobile. It's really there's a bit of tweaking that needs to be done. So, for example, if you have really large banner images on your desktop site, these won't render very well on mobile. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to change your site. There's just some tweaks you need to do in the back end to get that mobile responsiveness happening. The key to making sure mobile responsiveness works is test, and test again, and just tweak. So, yeah, there's a lot that doesn't work. So, for example, pop-up forms and things really don't work very well on a mobile. There are little tweaks you can do to have that happen, but you just need to make sure that whatever you're doing works just as well from a conversion rate, from a usability perspective on a mobile as it does on a desktop. Mobile website viewing took over desktops back in 2016. So given it's now 2020, it's really time that your website is mobile responsive. So really, if you're not doing it now and you're sick of listening to me, get on your phone and check that your site is mobile responsive, and check what works and what doesn't work. Check how easy it is to fill in forms and things. And also the other thing is look at your audience. If you've got an audience on your website that are pretty well mobile users, they are not going to be looking at a screen, a desktop or things like that, then really make the focus of your website mobile responsiveness. And that's all I've got to say on that topic. Now we're going to ownership. Okay, this is a really important one, and I know I'm rushing these end bits because I know I talk a lot. So this is a really interesting one. So do you have control of your website? Do you know who can access your channels and sites? The reason I say this is, unfortunately, over the last few months, we have had a lot of clients come to us to refresh their websites and build a comprehensive digital strategy, only to discover that their original web developer refuses to give them access to the back end of their website, or their social media accounts were managed by a staff member that's no longer employed by the business. Or in one case, we had an estranged family member who had all the passwords and refused to hand them over. So it's really difficult when you don't have that, but it's really surprising about how many businesses don't know who's got all their passwords and don't know where they're all kept and who's on their sites. The fix for this, we've had to actually rebuild websites and move hosting platforms and everything to actually get control back of sites. We've also had to build new social media accounts and get old ones deactivated. Now, I don't know if anyone has had to shut down a Facebook account before, but it takes forever to shut one down. So often with that, you've got two accounts running in tandem and you've got to try and get people off one and onto another, and it is a lot of effort, a lot of time, and it's also confusing for your brand. So if you can avoid that, that's great. So don't lose control and own your voice. It's your voice, it's your business, so make sure you own it and you trust those that have custody of your brand to also own your voice. Always have your own, if you're a small to medium business, always have your own login to your accounts. Even if you don't use them, just have them. Update your account administrators regularly and check in all the time to protect your channels. And also have more than one administrator in your business, and make sure one of them is you. Even if you'd never do anything on it, just make sure you've got a bit of control. And I know this might sound strange, but if you are a business owner, ensure your digital assets, which is your websites and social media, particularly if it's business related and they are selling things, make sure your digital assets are outlined in your estate planning instruments. Now, I know this is a weird tip of the day, but we've also seen a lot of that where someone passes away, suddenly gets ill, you have a real difficulty and you can't pass on those passwords to someone else to be able to run your business. You will have all sorts of drama trying to get them, trying to get someone else access to those things if you don't know what they are and change them. So just make sure you have them clearly documented. I know this is a bit of a Debbie Downer topic, but it's something we're seeing all the time, and it's a really important information. Okay, we're nearly there, people. We're on to tip number 9, and that is content. So in terms of content, content is really, really important. The biggest problem is who's going to produce all this content. You're snowed under running the whole business, but you need to make sure that your content is relevant to your consumer. So yeah, just dumping a bunch of information in your site won't do it. Instead, you need the content. You need content that's valuable to your visitors. What's your business an expert on, and what does your brand really stand for? They're the things that are quite obvious and should be things that you're doing. But for example, if you're a recruitment agency and you're focused on attracting exceptional talent, writing and sourcing content about crafting the perfect resume and nailing the interview, that's pretty much low-hanging fruit. Whereas if you put articles about leadership, how you can, positively spend time on your lunch break, that can further enhance your brand and support your message and things like that. And it's a bit more value in that content. Just really quickly to tips on how to create and curate content relevant to your brand. Now, when I talk about content curation, that is using other people's content, obviously acknowledging them in that use to actually enhance your brand. A lot of people do this on social media, sharing content and things like that. But if you're going to do that, make sure you actually write why it is you found that piece of information interesting, not just share straight away. A few tips on creating content is developing your buyer personas. If you haven't established who your buyer personas are, it's a fantastic exercise and it'll give you some much needed clarity around your ideal customers. I'm not going to go into too much about that, but if you want some more information on that, I can send it to you afterwards. You'll have by doing this, you've got a better understanding of your customers, how they're talking, what they're actually talking about, and that's a good thing to be creating those pieces of contents and things like that. Answer questions. So creating content is not always easy. We know that, but creating content that's authentic, really think about the questions that you're being asked by your ideal customer. Focus on a content strategy is really good because it means that people will do it. Content is also branding, not sales. Branding and content do go hand in hand. Your content should be designed to help people and not to sell people. It's all about adding insightful and relevant information to your customers as well. And tell a great story and be yourself. So that's a really important thing. The other thing, my number 1 rule and recommendation when creating content, before you even pick up a pen, write anything down, is answer these 2 questions and you'll never go wrong. And those 2 questions are, so what? And the second question is, who cares? So you need to make sure before you're putting anything together, whether it's a video, whether it's an infographic, doesn't matter what that content is, the so what bit is, so what? I read that, so what? What should I be doing? Should I be reviewing something in my business? What should I do with that information you've gave me? And who cares? That question goes to your audience. Who actually cares about the topic you've just written about, and who do you want to care? So write to that audience, not to the world, but to the audience you want to care. This applies to all content, not just digital. So the content you create needs to not be all about you, but it should be all about your customers, their problems and the solution that works for them. And lucky last is connection. The connection piece here, this is where you bring it all together. So your website and social media, they're just tools as part of your whole marketing toolkit. They're just pieces of the puzzle. So make sure you connect everything together to ensure a seamless experience with your brand. Check your usernames are consistent across all your platforms. Create hashtags for your company and use them. Make sure you engage your staff. Make sure they like and share content on your company social media pages as often as you can. There's a feature on LinkedIn that actually allows the administrator to share every 7 days with employees on LinkedIn. So just make sure that you've got everything connected. Ensure your social media channels are hyperlinked from your website. This is for the channel so people can find you, and not necessarily the tools to share your content. These are important as well, but it's not just about that. So I know I've rushed to the end, but I know we want to finish on time, and I'm probably getting a big wind up. So thank you, everyone. If you do have any questions or anything like that, and you want to connect with us afterwards, happy to take any questions. Happy to take any questions now if you have any. And that's it. Thanks.